All right, everybody. The Boston Celtics go into Charlotte and come out victorious. No Jaylen Brown in this one. Got to say hello to old friend Grant Williams. We're going to get all into it here. How the Celtics walked away with a 118-104 victory. Coming up next here on Green with Envy. You know the deal. Let's lock in. What up, what up, what up? Welcome into another post-game edition of Green with Envy. As always, it's your boy Will Weir checking in. How you doing? How you living? A fun night of basketball, not just in Charlotte. We're going to talk about some of the women's game here in just a little bit that I know some of you may have been watching as well. Joining me today to break down what happened in this Celtics Hornets clash of the Titans. Maybe that's a little bit overselling it here. It's my best friend, co-host, and the coach of our podcast, the one and only Greg Manakis. How you doing tonight, man?
I'm good. I'm really interested. What percentage of you is paying more attention to the Celtics over the women's game? Because I feel like I was actually probably 60-40 women's game over Celtics.
So I think I was. So I tuned into the women's game a little bit late. I just didn't realize what time it started. So I was locked into the Celtics game. I happened to be looking at a tweet and I saw like Caitlin Clark going crazy to start the game. I was like, oh shit, I didn't realize it was starting at the same time. The Celtics were a little bit earlier start time than usual. I feel like, out here Central Time, I just assumed 6:30, and I was like, oh, it's a 6 o'clock start tonight. So had to kind of, change my game plan up a bit here. And so I missed the very, very beginning of the game. So then I kind of locked in to the women's game. And I so funny, we have the same brain. I definitely through the end of the first half was like, okay, I probably got to pay a little bit more attention to this Celtics game here. I think I could probably tell you more about how I feel about the Iowa LSU game at the end of the first half. Then I caught up with the Celtics and then locked in for the end. But yeah, I think it was pretty close to a 50-50 split throughout, just kind of like balancing the two. And I had the volume on low for one game. So I had the women's game volume was a little bit lower. So then if I heard the announcers or the crowd like getting into it, I'd like flip back over and then I would kind of like balance it out that way.
We can always put this in the show notes for the pod listeners, but do you want to talk about the women's game before the Celtics game? It was the far more interesting game.
It was. Let's do the Celtics game first. I don't think we're going to
Okay.
spend too long on it. So let's do what we do here. Let's queue up a quick morning box score just to set the scene here for the Celtics and the Hornets. The Celtics come away with a 118-104 victory against the Hornets. Let's start with Charlotte here and old friend Grant Williams. That's going to be one of the things that we'll talk about here. Grant Williams, pretty solid game tonight for him. 10 of 16 from the field. He had 23 points and 7 rebounds. Young rookie on Charlotte here, Brandon Miller, 7 of 15 from the field, 19 points, 5 rebounds, and they had another guy with 26 points. We're not going to mention him. Let's go to the Celtics here and let's talk and let's start with Sam Hauser. Sam Hauser had another big night. We just had a podcast about a week and a half or so ago talking about weaponizing Sam Hauser. This was the definition of a fully weaponized Sam Hauser tonight. 7 3-pointers, 7 of 11 from 3 for Sam. He had 25 points and 5 rebounds. Jason Tatum, 9 of 19, 4 of 10 from 3, 25 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals. Kristaps Porzingis, another night, only 1 of 3 from 3, but once again, finding other ways to be effective. 7 of 8 from the free throw line. He had 20 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists. 15 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists for Al Horford. And then Derrick White cashing in a $500K bonus tonight, knocking down 4 out of 10 from the three-point line. Only needed one of them to go ahead and get that $500,000 bonus tonight, but he has 19 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, just doing, quite simply, what Derrick White does. Greg, in this one, I mean, this is kind of the perfect late season game for the Celtics. Never really felt, especially when playing a team like the Hornets that doesn't have much to play for, or literally has nothing to play for. And you go into this game, you never really feel too tense about it. There's never any moments where you're really feeling like you held your breath. And the Celtics feel in control pretty much from beginning to the end. The Hornets had a nice first quarter where they showed a little bit of energy coming out, ready to play. But, at the end of the day, like I said, this felt like a perfect late season game for the Celtics.
Yeah, even if the Celtics lost this game, I really don't think I would have cared. Like
Which I caught myself also thinking about in the first quarter when it was like 30-30 or whatever the final score was in the first quarter. I was like, eh, I can't even like pretend like I can find a way to get worked up if the Celtics don't come back. And then of course they came back, win by 14.
Yeah, and then, I was as Grant Williams was playing well. We had the Dean Wade game. We had who was the other guy that killed us recently?
It was what was oh my god, why am I blanking on this? It was the from the Hawk. Well, DeJounte Murray killed us, but it
Oh, Vic Krejci.
There we go. There we
Yeah,
go. David Krejci's brother. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So he killed us, and then Grant Williams was killing us a little bit today. But it was just one of those games where the Hornets, like, they were trying. Clearly, they were trying to play basketball, but they didn't seem very motivated to be on the court. They were just out there getting some cardio in, getting their stats up. They didn't really lock in too much on defense. Brandon Miller was fun to watch.
Yeah.
Micic had some moments. He who
Would
must
you
not
would
be
let's
named
let's,
played
let's
well.
pause on Brandon Miller for a minute. Just because we don't get to see him very often,
Yeah.
and I'm assuming if you're like me, I haven't been very locked in on Hornets games this season. So my Brandon Miller coverage has been
Brandon Miller, for me,
sparse.
he's one of those guys that every once in a while I'll just go to NBA.com and click on like field goal attempts, and just watch all of his shots for a
Right.
game, just because I just want to see what some of the young guys are doing. I like Brandon Miller, man. He's very smooth. I know that he idolizes Paul George, right? Paul George
Right.
is
You can see it in his game a little
he
bit.
calls Paul George his GOAT. He thinks that Paul
Yeah, I've
George
seen
is
that.
like
Yeah.
the greatest of all time. And you see when Tatum goes up against a guy like Brandon Miller, you can tell that he's out there and he's like, I'm gonna take you to school tonight, man. I'm gonna cross you up a couple times. I'm gonna put my shoulder in you. I'm gonna dunk on you. I'm gonna pick your pocket. But go ahead, young fella, do your thing. Because Brandon Miller had some nice moments. He's
Yeah.
definitely going to be a player. There's no question about it. I think Brandon Miller will be a multi-time All-Star in his career. I think he's that good. He's so young, so smooth though. He's got great size, great skills, beautiful jump shot. I think he's gonna. I would say I'd set the over under at 3.5 All-Star games for Brandon Miller.
Yeah, I mean that feels like, I mean, once again, that's a really good career, right? And so if you're the Hornets, you're happy with that. You're hoping it's the over on that. If you're really gonna start building something, whether that's with LaMelo or with other guys that didn't play tonight, but with Brandon Miller, you can see the Paul George, Brandon Ingram influence to his game. Like he just has that look and feel of the modern NBA wing. Right now, it just becomes, what level does that go to? And this is his rookie year on a team that's not very good. So he's got, I think he has a very high ceiling. I can certainly see now it's looking like, obviously they made well, I don't want to say obviously, it's a rookie season, but they got to feel pretty good about this season from Brandon Miller versus what's happening with Scoot Henderson in Portland. Obviously, time will tell. It's a rookie point guard. You definitely can't write off Scoot just quite yet. But at the time, it wasn't as, seamless of a pick to just say, yeah, we're taking Brandon Miller over Scoot. Like that was a pretty strong debate. And for them to go ahead and, make that pick and get the results that they've gotten out of Brandon, they got to feel pretty good. So yeah, I think he'll be intriguing to watch as he grows. And like you said, tonight there were glimmers of it. It's just going to be about the consistency and then also them building out a team, around him, but could be a nice foundational piece for them going forward.
I mean, dude, rookie year numbers, 17 points per game on 37% from deep.
Yeah.
It didn't shoot a great percentage overall, only 43.5%. 37% from deep in your rookie year is huge, though, on 6.5 attempts a game as well. So he's getting those things up there. 81% from the line, 1.5 stocks. So I think those like if that's like the basic numbers of what you're getting out of Brandon Miller rookie year, LaMelo being out, not sure if that helped those numbers or hurt those numbers, but
Right.
I do think there's probably even a question now, right? Is who's the better player for you to build around? Is it
Who's
LaMelo?
the franchise cornerstone, right?
Exactly. Is it
Yeah.
LaMelo who can't stay healthy? It seems like the Ball brothers can't stay healthy. And that would stink if both of those guys just like don't end up having long careers in the NBA because they're both such promising players. So Brandon Miller was impressive though. There wasn't much like at stake in this game. So we're not really sure as to like what he's going to look like in a game that means something. But there were
Right.
a couple moments where you could tell that he was a little frustrated with the way the game was going, and he stepped up, had some nice moments of oomph throughout the game. And that's what I like to see out of rookies, for a team that's got nothing to play for, at least have the silver linings of being like, you know what, we have this guy that we can root for
Mhm.
5 years, and we got Grant Williams.
Yeah, I mean, hey, Brandon Miller, Grant Williams, duo of the future. Good for you guys, Charlotte. Enjoy, enjoy Brandon Miller and Grant Williams. But back to the Celtics here, just for a moment. I mentioned Sam Hauser was awesome tonight, just continuing his hot shooting, 7 of 11. And then another guy that I wanted to point out was just Kristaps. We talked a little bit about how Zach Lowe brought it up, and I talked about it an episode ago, where the 3-point shooting for Kristaps has been a little bit cold. But I think these last 2 games against the Pelicans and tonight against Charlotte. It was just great to see that Kristaps, I mean, this wasn't surprising, so I'm going to just lead with that. But to see Kristaps still not necessarily have the range from 3, 1 of 3, not terrible, not bad, but still be able to affect the game in so many other ways. And you could see that tonight, especially with a team that's starting Grant Williams at center. That's the type of team that Kristaps Porzingis needs to just absolutely punish.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm not really worried about Kristaps shooting. I'm trying to look up his stats right now really quickly to take a look at exactly what he's been shooting over the last 15 games. Let's
Yeah,
go
I
to
can do
that.
that for you real quick while you talk here.
I think I got it pulled up here. Let's see.
Yeah, because I think he was 6 of 28 over the last 5 games or so. Because then he missed that stretch of about 8 games or so. So the last 15 kind of throws it off a little bit because there's the injury mixed in.
Right. So let's see. Last 15 games, catch and shoot threes. He's shooting 37%, only 26. 37% on threes basically. Over the last 15. So it's not horrible.
Yeah.
If we go to the last, maybe last 5, it'll probably
Yeah.
not
So
as
over his last 6 games, which is like just since he came back from that injury, basically,
23%.
he's shooting just under 30%.
Yeah, last 5 games
29%.
he's shooting 23%. Well, last 3 games he's shooting 23% because it's the last 3 games he's played. Yeah, I mean, I'm not really worried about Porzingis, man. I think he's one of those guys that is going to need a rhythm when he's shooting those 3-point shots. So the more, I think, as much as we want to keep him healthy, we need to make sure that he's in a rhythm going into the playoffs. So hopefully we can get him, at least 3/4 of action, at least a half of action over the last 7 games of the season, just to make sure that he's staying in a rhythm and he's getting those pick and pop threes down, because he's the missing piece for that offense to really hum on all levels. If you have to respect Porzingis out to 30 feet or 27 feet, however long he can extend it, I think he really unlocks so much for the offense. I'm not worried about him missing threes. So I think he's too good of a shooter to be in a prolonged slump.
Yeah.
Even Steph Curry goes into month-long slumps.
Right. Just a little bit streaky here. But before we leave this game, there is an interesting hypothetical that Scal brought up, and it leads into the Celtics' next opponent, the Thunder. What if Kristaps Porzingis was on the Thunder? Just talk about the West. If Kristaps Porzingis, just insert him into the Thunder's lineup rotation right now, would you make them the favorite in the West? That was an interesting thought exercise by Scal.
I did not hear this thought exercise, so this is my first time thinking about it. Why don't you go first, because you've had more time to think about it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it would make them the favorite, but obviously with the Thunder coming into town here on Wednesday night, which we'll have coverage for you of that game coming up here. The Thunder
Was
have
this
just
a
been
possibility?
no. It was just because there wasn't much to talk about in the game,
Okay.
and so Thunder coming up. It was just basically how like Kristaps has been kind of the missing piece for us. Scal was just wondering like what would if Kristaps were on the Thunder? Do we think that would make them the favorite? Like basically, are the Thunder not necessarily an exact Kristaps Porzingis away, but are they one stretch big that can play on both sides of the ball away from being the best team in the West? Because I forget how they started talking about, but just how Scal doesn't believe in the Thunder as a playoff team, which a lot of people don't for the concerns of the size. And so I just thought it was interesting if you added Kristaps to that team, just thinking about that, like that does make them a really, really interesting team. Imagine having Kristaps and Chet out there. That's I mean, Chet with his defensive abilities can make up for some of the stuff that Kristaps can't do. You could really play a legitimate 5 out and have some different combinations.
I think a more interesting conversation, because like that's just so hypothetical. Like there was never a world in which that was going to happen. Is what if Al Horford was still on the Thunder? Like how much of a difference?
That was another thought I had too. Because
what would Al Horford make? Because he was on the Thunder. They ended up trading him back to the Celtics. And I think he's the type of defender that you would probably actually want to pair with Chet versus Porzingis, who's another beanpole. You know what I mean? So I think
Yeah.
Horford being there would be really interesting, especially with the way that Al has continued this resurgence deep into his career, where he could bang with all the guys that Chet can't right now. Such a smart player. You know, they're such a equal opportunity offense. Although Shea ends up like getting all the love, he does move the rock and everybody contributes. So I think Horford would actually be the more interesting piece on that team. I think Porzingis obviously is a better player than Horford, but in terms of fit, I think Horford would be the more interesting piece there.
Did you catch that Shea game winner the other night at MSG?
I actually haven't. No, I heard it was like a terrible shot. Somebody was like, yeah, it was an awful shot, but it went in.
Yeah, it was just, I mean, they had like, I think 3 or 4 seconds left on an out of bounds play from midcourt. He basically just caught it on the baseline. Can't remember if he took one dribble or not. Turned over his right shoulder, hit a really tough contested fadeaway. It was an impressive shot.
Was it a buzzer beater?
No, there was 1.8 left. Brunson got a shot up, but it didn't. They got an even worse look, to be honest, and it didn't go in. But I watched the end of that game this morning, and God, dude, Jalen Williams was the one who was actually carrying the Thunder more so in the fourth quarter than Shea. Shea happened to hit the final shot, but it was J-Dub, and that's going to be a fun game.
He didn't even crack 20 points, right? He was like at 19 points. Yeah, I'm super excited for the Thunder game, man. You know, we hypothesized that JB would not play in this game tonight, and we were right with that prognostication. And you know, I think this game against the Thunder is a game that the Celtics should look at as a measuring stick, because Joe Mazzulla has already talked about using the, you know, certain moments within the last stretch of the season as teaching moments, as real-time practice. And what better simulation of a playoff game, of a potential finals matchup, than someone you literally might see in the finals in the OKC Thunder, and a team that will just get you ready for the level of execution that you need. Because if there's one thing about the Thunder that we've seen, and you and I probably have watched more Thunder this year than we ever have, is that they execute, and they're always going to play the way that they play. So the Celtics are going to need to match that in order to hang in this game. I know we're at home. The last time we played them, we were on the road, but I think, you know, with SGA, it'll be a really interesting kind of test case for when you go up against a guy like Jimmy Butler. If Jimmy Butler gets super hot, right, and he's just like all eyes are on him, who's going to take that matchup? You know, who's like even Jalen Brunson. You know, a very different player, but same idea that they can just completely take over a game. So I think the Celtics will have a lot of opportunities to try some different defensive lineups and just throw some stuff at the Thunder without like giving away too much in case we do see them in the finals.
Yeah, they'll be coming off a back-to-back with Philly on Tuesday, so that will be interesting to see how they play.
What are your thoughts on Embiid?
I mean, supposedly he's still out for that game on Tuesday. He's listed as out, at least. I saw that he's getting closer to coming back. I mean, I just got to see it. I got to see what it is, because if, you know, I mean, it's so tough to tell. I don't know what.
I do not want to see him in the first round. I think like I understand that he might not be full strength, but if he is, like, that's the worst possible matchup, because if Embiid does not get hurt this season, it's very likely they're the second seed in the conference.
Philly was the scariest team in the East by a mile when Embiid was healthy, and with a healthy Embiid, the Buddy Hield trade is way more deadly than it is right now, right? Like, that's the whole the Buddy Hield trade was made for if Joel Embiid comes back. It wasn't made for, you know, the Tyrese Maxey led Sixers. So I got to see what it looks like. I mean, I just have a hard time believing with that type of injury. It's very similar to the one that we saw Rob Williams deal with, and Embiid has a chronic list of bunch of injuries. Every playoff series we ever play with him, there's some injury. And so now he's already coming off 2.5 months. So yeah, maybe he's rested, but also we see him get winded every postseason. There's no chance his stamina is going to be at a point where I just don't think he's going to be at a point. But if I watch him and I'm wrong, then I will certainly adjust my expectations. But I just got to see it first before I get too worked up over it. But we'll keep an eye on that as well. But before we wrap up here, let's talk a little women's hoops, man. It's a fun night. We're recording this now as I believe the UConn USC game either is about to tip off or has just tipped off, and the Iowa women took down the LSU women tonight in a game that was just Caitlin Clark just showing up on the big stage and doing so in a big way. Knocked down, I believe it was 9 threes in this game tonight. Greg, I know, like we talked about, we were both doing the double screen. A lot of people across the country doing the double screen tonight. If you have an NBA team, and then you're also trying to keep up with the Elite Eight matchups tonight, what was your favorite part about that game tonight?
I think it was just really cool to see women's basketball have such a moment. I got a buddy, my guy Vinny, whose niece is a big time hooper at Nobles Academy in Massachusetts, and she's getting all these D1 offers. And I've been following her like Instagram basketball development since she was like 4 years old. So I've been, a little bit more locked in to women's hoops, especially with all the star power in women's hoops now over the last couple of years. Just because I want to see where she ends up going to play ball. She's got like a lot of D1 offers, and I'm just trying to like watch her tapes and then watch these games and see how she might fit in, because she looks great on Instagram and like the videos that I see, but she's small. So I don't know how she's going to like work out at the D1 level. But it's just really cool to see women's basketball have such an important night where like, I'm excited to finish this podcast so I can go watch the UConn game, because Paige Buckers is playing against Juju Watkins. Is it Watson or Watkins? I think it's Watkins.
It's Watkins.
Yeah, Watkins. And like those moments for women's basketball, I think are so important, because there's like the game is growing. You saw was it Flau'jae Johnson?
Yeah, she was great too.
Tonight? Dude, she's so fluid. She's so smooth.
Dude, like, that shot she made at the end of the second quarter to go into halftime, when she took that hard dribble towards the baseline, hit that spin move. I was like, I don't think I haven't watched a ton of women's basketball. I don't think I've ever seen a move that like that fluid, that strong, that fast, that quick. Like I was really impressed. As much as I was impressed by Caitlin Clark, she was another one that really stood out to me tonight.
Dude, Caitlin Clark's stat line. She was 41 points, 12 assists, 7 rebounds, 9 for 20 shooting threes. And a lot of those were like 27 to 30 footers contested.
I was telling you before we started recording, there's so much Steph Curry in her game. Everything about the way she operates. I think Ryan Rucco was on the call. He mentioned, like, I noticed that like she just doesn't have kind of a mid-range bag or like a floater game. And that was like the final missing piece for Steph Curry, right? Was adding that, where it was like, oh, you want to close out on me? Okay. Like she still was making amazing passes in the lane, but if she could have had, I think, 50 plus points tonight if she had that floater game, or if she had that little like mid-range game. Not to take away from her game, just saying she could have. She had those opportunities.
Yeah. I mean, she created 65 points maybe.
Yeah, out of what, 70 something they scored, or 80?
No, dude, they ended up scoring 94.
Oh shit, maybe they scored some more towards the end when I wasn't watching. But yeah, dude, she was awesome. And I think it's really cool how you can see, like I said, a lot of Steph Curry to her game. I think that's part of Steph's legacy, dude, is going to be his influence on not just the men's game, because obviously we've seen it with the men's game with how 3-point revolution, where people are shooting from. But we've talked about it before in the sense that anyone can see themselves in Steph, which is different than when you watch Michael Jordan, when you watch LeBron James, when you watch Kobe. Like, not everybody is going to be 6'5", crazy athletic, dunking over people, right? Even if they have nice jump shots in certain, areas of their mid-range game, a lot of that is still built on, their athleticism, like things that they do. And this isn't to say that Steph or Caitlin Clark or even Sabrina Ionescu, like, they're not athletic, but the way that Steph plays is much more replicable for normal people. Like, it just is. You got to work on it, but you're seeing it now. And I think that's really cool to think about, the influence of him being able to have not on just the men's game, but the women's game as well. And the fact that is now drawing as many eyeballs as it is. I think they said, and I'll be curious on how many people were watching this game tonight, but it was almost 10 million viewers for the Iowa LSU national title game last year. I know this game, and also the USC UConn game, which is going on right now as we record, has been super hyped. I've been seeing it everywhere. Everyone talking about, I got my day, like, is all managed around watching these games. So I'm gonna be really interested to see what those numbers look like. And yeah, it's a pretty historic night for women's basketball right now.
Yeah, and the Steph legacy is interesting, but then you're going to have like the next legacy of little girls watching Caitlin Clark play, right?
Mhm.
And like all these girls that are watching now, they have role models that are women, and
Right.
it's not just Steph Curry. So these little girls are going to see Caitlin Clark doing her
Trickle
thing,
down effect.
the trickle down effect, exactly. And I mean, it's really interesting to see where the game is going, because you know with I'm thinking back to just like going to my sister was a good high school athlete, right? And I was her little brother. She's 4 years older than me, so I went to all of her games. And there was like a couple girls that could play a little bit, they could shoot a little bit, but it was always a little clunky. And I'm sure people would say the same about having gone to my games and watched my games. Like I'm sure like the skill level of high school now is just like
Yeah.
4 times what it was when I was in high school, because people didn't have individual trainers. We didn't even have YouTube to really like
Yeah.
watch all these guys and like study their games. It was just
Like, if you didn't get a drill from a coach or a relative in your life, like, you didn't like, you were just either doing your own thing or you weren't doing anything, right?
right.
And who knows what you were doing on your own, whether or not like, it was just, like, if you were being active and you had a ball in your hand, whether you were shooting or you were dribbling, even if it wasn't, like, a drill, like, that was being productive, right? And
I
now it's,
only
like,
learned from
hyper
going to
focused.
camps and just like watching Celtics games. Like I went
Yeah.
to every Dana Barros basketball camp I could go to, because like I didn't have access to like all the greatest coaches on YouTube, which you
Or
do
you'd have
now
that,
have.
like, one VHS tape that had,
Right.
like, like, I know, like, there was, like,
The
the Red
JJ Redick
Auerbach
tape.
one or, like there's, like, different things that you could find, but you would just use that and just watch that over and over, like, "Alright, let me just go in the backyard, flip a ball, and try to do these," whatever I just saw on that tape, and that was it.
Yeah, I mean, how many times did we play games where you would shoot something, you'd like do your little Antoine flip shot, like
Yeah,
we
something
would
like
like
that.
study moves that the Celtics would do. And I remember like one summer really working on my Ricky Davis bag. Because like
Yeah.
Ricky Davis, I remember that like the right-handed like attack dribble pull up, land on 2 feet, Ricky Davis pull up jump
Mhm.
shot was a shot that I worked on for an entire summer. I don't know that I ever really used it in a game, but like those were shots that I worked on just off of games that I was watching. I didn't really have any tape to study.
Right.
And now these, kids have tape to study. They have all these great Instagram accounts where people will break down the game. There's this one guy I actually want to send you off air, but what he's doing is he's taking all of the stuff that they say from the LeBron podcast with JJ Redick, and he's just like showing all the plays and with like all of his players and breaking down all the actions that they're talking about,
That's
which is
cool.
really cool, really interesting. But there's so much good content out there for people to grow their games. And then there's that whole conversation of bones versus cones, right? Are you going to play, or are you going to just be a drill champion? And I think
Mhm.
that's the biggest thing for the next generation, is still continuing to get out there and actually play 5-on-5 basketball. And
Yeah,
actually like,
Russillo and Simmons were talking about this a little bit
okay.
on I forget how they ended up getting there, but I think it was something Russillo said he's been asking, like, not just basketball like connects that he has, but like hockey guys too, and like
Mm,
different sports, and they're like talking about the disconnect from all of the skill work, but there's very rare that some of these guys, like, other than like AAU tournaments, like, they're
yeah.
not just like learning how to use that individual skill set, which is great, but how do you apply that then to a team concept, right?
Right.
Because those are two different things.
And even like another level below that is just like playing against contact. Like when you and I go
Mhm,
and we shoot around, right? Whenever I'm working on something, I'm always like, hey, play defense on me and actually like hit me and like put a
mhm,
body on me, because I'm not going to actually learn what muscles I need to use in order to finish through contact and power through contact. And as I'm fading away in a jump shot, it's one thing to fade away with nobody touching you, but it's another thing to get a little shove in your
mhm.
side as you're spinning away and learn how to like readjust your body. So that's just something I've always been interested in, as someone who has dabbled in skill development and personal training with younger players and a former varsity basketball coach. I think it's so important for kids to continue that. But it was just crazy to see the skill level from Caitlin Clark tonight, man. Just like the step back threes, 30 footers, and then the IQ and the hit ahead passes were amazing.
Yeah, dude. So she's on to the Final Four. Definitely going to be locked into that. I know she'll be playing the winner of this UConn USC game. So right now it's 15-12 here towards the end of the first quarter. So we're going to sign off for tonight. We'll be back later this week. Big Thunder game, Celtics Thunder. If everyone's playing, that should be a really, really fun game. So make sure on Thursday we'll have our live stream, which is the day after that game. We will have a live stream as we do every Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central. Make sure that you come locked and loaded. Bring your questions. We'll have some reaction to that game. And of course, set you up for the weekend of Celtics basketball. But that's going to do it for us tonight. Celtics win 118-104 against Grant Williams and the Charlotte Hornets. I'm your boy, Will Weir. This is Greg Manakis. We're going to send you out with some Black Sheep Optimists. We'll catch y'all later. Peace.
I lose my mind. It don't take much no more until I hit the floor. Every time I get this high, it's you I find. It don't take much no more until I'm at your door.
You cut me to my core, baby. What can I say? You got me on the floor, you know I came to play. I know I shouldn't, but you seem to take my pain away. And every time I score, Jason Tatum fade away. I close my